Today's topic is field techniques in geography. Before going in details, get a clear idea that any field techniques depend on the researcher hypothesis. Researchers have every liberty to choose any field techniques. Here we are only discussing the conventional field techniques normally used in the geographical research. Now question is, what is field techniques? Field techniques is a method to collect quantitative and the qualitative information from the research field for the geographical study. Basically, field techniques helps to create the primary data source. Field techniques is an obligatory part of all sort of geographical research. It may be the part of human geography. It is also the integral part of physical and social geography. And it is equally important for social, physical, cultural, all sort of geographical research. Now come to the principal types of field techniques for the geographical research. First one is the observation, second is the questionnaire survey, and third one is the interview method. Observation method is segmented into the two parts, participatory observation and non-participatory observation. Participatory observation includes the active participation of researcher, and in non-participatory observation, researcher is not directly related to the participation, not directly participated in the field activities, that is known as passive participation. Participatory field work. Researcher regularly visit the site, visit the particular research area, visit the particular geographical area of her or his research concern. He or she collected the detailed information from the field. It's create a successful participation and observation. And researcher always records audio, visual, cameras, and also use to capture raw data set in the forms of direct interaction or the help of audio-visual devices. Those are the participatory observation. Basically, the main or prime goal of participatory observation in fieldwork is that to create, to build the empirical data set. Basically, it's a very direct method of the research work. And there are few advantages of active participation. Those are the observation of natural behavior, closeness with the group, studying the real character. It helps to create better understanding, and participatory observation provides the opportunity to the researcher to learn more about the event. Those are the advantages of participatory observation. In the participatory method, researcher visits the field in several times and he or she takes part in active field work. It's a direct method or the active method of field work. In this method, researcher visits the geographical area for the specific purpose and spend time in field work. There are several advantages of the participatory method. It helps to get the natural behavior and the natural and unbiased information from the field. When a group knows that they are going to be observed by an outsider, by a researcher, then they feel conscious and uncomfortable. Therefore, the neutrality of their behavior is lost. But in the cases of participant observation, respondents do not know that they are being observed. Hence, the behavior is not constrained by their consciousness and by the consciousness of their feeling. So, we can get from the participatory observation, researcher can get the pure and unbiased information from the field. We can take in several examples of that. Suppose direct household survey during the village survey, land use survey by the researcher, seasonal variation of cropping pattern, All this type of information researcher can get from the field study. Second one is the closeness with the group, that is the group activities. In participatory observation and participatory field work, especially for the physical geography and as well as for social and human geography, helps to build the cooperation and the fellow feelings among a group of researchers. We can take an example. Suppose long profile study of a river. Suppose it's a Kachi river of Jharkhand. It's a 30-kilometer long river. This work needs cooperation. Without cooperation, without group study, this 30 kilometers long Kachi river survey, long profile survey not become possible. And taken another example, Manasha Puja festival in Purulia and Bankura district is a very famous and ancient one. If a researcher wishes to have first-hand information about that festival, so he or she needs to have group coverage of group study of the whole thing. So it will create a bond with the co-fellow and it create a bonding with the group activities too. Next one is that the participant observation helps to build the better perception of the researcher. Direct or active observation methods helps to build a practical knowledge base of the researcher. We can take an example from the physical geography. Suppose open cast coal mining of Meja coal field and the soil profile creation by the borehole data in the mining areas. And we can take an example from the social geography to dialect of the Jharkhand and West Bengal and its similarities and dissimilarities in the border zone of West Bengal and the Jharkhand. That kind of information, that kind of database we can only get from the field observation. Next one is that the participant observation helps to build better understanding. In participant observation, the researcher can better understand the perception attitude of the respondent than the outsider. We know research, basically geographical research is an empirical research. That's mean doing by the learning and doing goes hand in hand. So empiricism and the research work, that statement becomes justified only by the direct methods of observation and the field observation. We can take another example. Suppose Nick Point recession and parallel retreat study. This is a Nick Point formation of Subarnarekha and its parallel retreat and recession. This phenomena become clear to the researcher by the direct observation of the Nick Point zone of Subarnarekha. Suppose we can take an example, identification of rocks and minerals type. Only researcher can only identify the rocks and minerals if he or she visited the field several times. Those are those knowledge base helps to create better understanding of the researcher. The participant observation provides opportunity to learn more about an event. It explores the more dimension of fieldwork. We can take an example. The researcher objectivity is to learn the food pattern of Shantal community of Birbhum district, West Bengal. After regular field visit and after careful observation, it opens the new avenue to learn about the festival food pattern, festival clothing pattern, festival ritual ceremonies of that tribes. That kind of information provides by the participant observation. In spite of above advantages in participant observation, this method also has disadvantages too. These are the disadvantages of participant observation. In spite of lots of advantage of participant observation, but it has also disadvantages. like lack of objectivity. We can take an example. Suppose a researcher goes for a sand mining techniques to study a sand mining techniques in Damodar River region. But after the intensive and careful field study, his or her interest towards the daily wage labor of sand mining areas. That leads to another dimension of the research work, but it has a chance to lack of integrity of the previous work. Next one is that often close association brings biased interpretation, biased view. Intensive field studies, especially in the cases of socio-cultural and economic study in the geographical research, as an individual researcher may act and may react with all these attributes within the biased views. We can take an example. Young generation, often particular ethnic community, loses their interest in their ethnic culture. The old members' views of that particular community, that is that this is due to the result of, this is due to the effect of inclusion of media. Sometimes new researchers become biased by the views of the elderly people. And next one is the misses importance due to more familiarity, due to more interaction. We can take an example of that. Sometimes very frequent field visit make the researcher very casual attitude, and that kind of casual attitude sometimes giving the misleading information, sometimes misses the important issues of the particular area of the particular people and the field study. And next one is the limited range of experience. In the participatory observation, the observer or the researcher is confines himself within the particular community, within the particular geographical area. Sometimes that kind of limitation, that kind of experience become very deep. But as well as it also provides a negative impact on research work. Sometimes that kind of experience become very limited, very narrow. That kind of limitation always associated with the participatory observation. Next one is the involvement of groupism. Groupism, it creates the dichotomy and conflict with the group, with the interaction of group. Sometimes it will create, not necessarily always. So there are few limitation and also few advantages of the participatory observation, but it's very direct method and it is a very obligatory part of the geographical research. Second one is the non-participatory field work. In that field work, researcher is not taking active part in field work. Researcher here is a passive viewers, and in non-participatory field work, a researcher participate in field from a distance. So it is often called as a quasi-participant observation. Advantages of non-participant observation. First one is the objective and neutral. Objectivity and neutral. It's free from the community bias. Second one is that the common in respect and cooperation. It always build a cooperation and common respect. Okay, a questionnaire survey. Suppose in the cases of questionnaire survey done by the particular individual and that will be used by the researcher using the video still photography taken by the other people to interpret the rock lithology soil type. That kind of cooperation and interaction among the group, it will create a good bonding and good cooperation in research work. Basically research activities in today's world is a group activities. It will create the bonding. Second thing is that the careful analysis. Unbiased and careful analysis is the first and foremost step of any research work. From that point of view, the non-participatory observation helps to careful and unbiased analysis of the research work. And there are also few disadvantages of non-participatory fieldwork. Those are the first one is the subjectivity. In any research, and in the cases of geographical research, subjectivity is prime and foremost important because research work is an empirical study. So lack of subjectivity is the absence of empiricism, and that will provide, most of the cases it provides misleading information about the field area, about the geographical area. Second one is the inadequate observation. Researcher perspective is not always reflected in the database because researcher in non-participatory observation, researchers stay away from the field. So there is not any physical connection in between the geographical field or geographical area and researcher, and that is the basic reason behind that the researcher perception is not always reflected in his or her data set. And third one is the unnatural and formal information. Sometimes it's basically the third party information. Here the researcher uses the information that is the third party information. Sometimes it become very formal information. So the research work loses the integrity and the importance and loses the analytical aspect. So fourth one is the inconvenience to the respondents. Sometimes respondents are not very familiar to reply, to respond in the questionnaire survey to the third people or the third party's information creation or building. So those are the disadvantages of non-participatory fieldwork. Basically, whether it is participatory or non-participatory, but geographical research always accompanied by the combination of both. Partly participatory fieldwork, it's prime and foremost step of the any geographical research, maybe physical geography and human geography, because geographical research is an empirical research. Second one is that it may be partly non-participatory, and basically in modern geographical study is a combination of both. So it is called as a quasi-participatory field work. The second most important field techniques is the questionnaire survey. Question may be various types. It may be open-ended, closed-ended, mixed and quasi-questionnaire, structured questionnaire, unstructured questionnaire, scaled questions, dichotomous question and multiple choice question. So questionnaire may be various types and various forms that depend on the hypothesis and the choices of the researcher. Now what is questionnaire survey? Questionnaire survey is a device, is a research device or the instrument that is made up the series of questions. It may be close-ended, may be open-ended. The ultimate goal of the questionnaire survey is to collect the relevant information from the field. It will create the primary data source. Questionnaire survey can provide the quantitative data set and as well as the qualitative data sets too. Therefore, the goal of the questionnaire survey is to collect relevant information related to the geographical research directly from the field. It will create qualitative as well as quantitative database. Rather, it creates the primary database. But that method is not invented by the geographers, not first used by the geographer. That techniques first time used by the Statistical Society of London in 1838. And we used these techniques, geographical research and geographers and the researcher from the field of geography has been used these techniques, and that techniques directly borrowed from the statistician. We are using that techniques and we borrowed the techniques from the field of statistics. This is not invented techniques by the geographers. So, but there are few general rules to prepare the questionnaire survey. So, question must be clear and language of the questionnaire survey should be simple and concept will be clear. That question should be unbiased. An adequate answer option is the integral part of the questionnaire survey. Questions should be shorter and single question at a time. Otherwise, it will create the disturbance to the respondent. An affirmative sentence is the most important in questionnaire survey. Mathematics is not imposed. It's a basic rule for the questionnaire survey. Clear short reference period and avoid the question in referencing. Those are the basic principle how to prepare a questionnaire, how to crafting the question. Both all these principles are followed in the questionnaire survey. Format of questionnaire survey. So questionnaire must be brief and concise. First thing is that researcher must keep in his or her mind about the size of questionnaire. It must be brief, smaller and concise. The questionnaire paper should be constructed on a good quality of paper with good quality of printing. The question paper should be attractive layout. Next one is the clarity. The question should be clear, short in the term of tenure and the expression. And next one is the sequence. Sequence should be arranged. Questions should be arranged sequentially and according to the importance and the preference. And next one is the communicability. The question should be question of the questionnaire should be able to keep interest of the respondent. Without the communicability with the respondent, the objective of the questionnaire survey will be ultimately will be failed. So communicability of the question to the respondent will be very important and vital step. And next one is the time span. The length of the question in the questionnaire survey should be short, and question should not be very long. This is another principle of questionnaire survey that question types to be avoided in a questionnaire. Those are the question without specific purpose and objective, and the hypothetical question should be avoided. Ambiguous concept with the complex language must be avoided. Question with maths and statistics must be avoided. And repeat question and double negative question must be avoided. Embarrassing personal question must be avoided. And the burning issue is a very sensitive issue. Researchers have to deal with the burning issues very carefully, very politely, and very logical and analytical languages. Those are the principles what to do and what not to do in questionnaire survey. This is very important and vital point. On the basis of the question, on the basis of the framing of question, the failure and success of the questionnaire survey depends on that. Next one is the questionnaire question types. Basically, questionnaire question types are few types: open-ended, close-ended, multiple question, structured question, unstructured question, so on. First one is the open-ended question. Open-ended questions open for the respondent to answer with more freedom. Here, instead of presenting the series of answer choice, here respondents writes or express their opinion which they want to express. So from the open-ended question, we get an elaborate opinion of the respondent, and it will provide the quantitative as well as the qualitative data source. And in environmental study, perception study, socioeconomic study, open-ended question provides more information and more relevant information in research work. We can take an example of open-ended question. Suppose in a village study, a researcher can ask the next connectivity and the future of rural life and their opinion from the respondent. So respondents have a liberty, have a choice to express their views with few sentences. And next one is the close-ended question. Here the close-ended question normally it's helps to get the quantitative data source. It always included with the one or two or three option. Option should be given. Sometimes option should be 2, 3 or maybe series of option. Next one is that we can take an example that suppose a respondent researcher asks to a respondent to survey the taxpayer pattern. So do you regular taxpayer? Option will be never, regular and often. This is the option, never, regular or often. Those are the close-ended question. Okay. Next one is the multiple choice question. Multiple choice question in respondent with the list of the answer option. They can select one or more from the answer option. A list of answer option given by the researcher, and here the respondents have to select the answer from the list. So from that type of data source, we can get the qualitative as well as the quantitative data source. We can take an example. Suppose income level, monthly income of a family. So you can put the range of the monthly income in money, 10,000 to 15,000, 15,000 to 20,000 and moreover 20,000 and above. So respondent can choose, and option should be more than 2. That is called as a multiple choice question. And fourth one is the dichotomous question. It includes only possible to answer, only possible to answer. And those are the just like that yes or no. Question should be like agree and disagree, true and false, like and dislike. Those are the contradictory answer, and answer is confined within the two options, yes or no, agree or disagree, false or true, or the like or dislike. That kind of option is known as dichotomous question option. So that kind of question is known as dichotomous question. Suppose we can take an example. Suppose village lifestyle study. Do you like to stay village? Option is yes or no. This is dichotomous question. Okay. Another we can take another question. During the COVID-19, government is not taking proper step. This statement, comment on this statement. Option is agree or disagree. This is the dichotomous question. And fourth one is the scaled question. Scaled question, this is very relevant in socioeconomic study, and here to justify the degree of opinion, a scale or version of scale has been created by the researcher. Suppose you can take an example of Likert scale, 1 for good, 2 for very good, 1 for very good, 2 for good, 3 for moderate, 4 for bad and 5 for worst. So question is, are you satisfied with the health services of the government hospital? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 options are there. Those are scale. Scale are in ascending order. 1 is very good and 5 is worse. So you have to select one. This is the scaled question. Okay. We can take another example of scaled question. Basically here the degree of opinion or the feeling of the respondent framing within the scale, framing within the intensity of the scale, that is known as scale question. We can take another example. Do you satisfied with the class teaching of MS Madam? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 is good, very good. 5 is bad. So you have to choose an option that is in scaled. So it is known as a scaled question. We can take an example of Likert scale. It also used in socio-economic study. Next one is the pictorial question. We are all familiar with the pictorial. It's related to the image or picture. It has been a higher respondent rate than the normal question type. It helps to visualize the respondent to the situation. That's why it has a higher respondent rate than the other question type. Question here, the questionnaire substitute a text or image, so people can easily choose the text or image. So like we can take an example of that. Rainy season and impact on the livestock farming. So we can create an image. So livestock farming and the rainy season. So people can select one image, and that will provide the qualitative as well as the quantitative information. It usually has a higher response than the other question type because it helps to visualize the situation to the respondent. Next one is the structure question. Structure question is very important. It is pre-planned, well-defined pattern of question with the particular and proper sequence. Pre-planned, well-defined pattern of question with proper sequence. It's very important for the geopolitical study, socio-economic study, and environmental perception study. We can take an example of that. Suppose we are giving the example of series of question. First one is the household survey questionnaire. Suppose first one is the number of room per family. Second question is the total number of family member. Third one is the age and gender of the family member. Fourth one is that the head of the family is male or female, is he a earning member, and his or her monthly salaries. Those are the sequential series of questions. So that creates a quantitative database and very easy to visualize the socio-economic situation. Structure question is very relevant for the historical geographical study, a geohistorical study, geopolitical study, and it helps to contemporary international and geopolitical study in geography. And next one is the unstructured question. It the open-ended question, not well-defined and not planned. Basically, those are the open-ended question, not well-defined, just like a light discussion mode and not planned. It focus on the group discussion, maybe indirect or direct discussion, and here maybe 1:1 interaction, maybe 1:many interaction. We can take example of that. COVID-19 and public awareness. You can get an opinion from without any structure question. The crop failure and the farmers crop security scheme by the government of India. Through the discussion method, very casual manner, researcher get an opinion and qualitative can get qualitative and the quantitative data. So questionnaire survey, the basic method we learned from the statistician, and first time statisticians use that techniques. We borrowed that techniques from the statistician, but in socio-economic study, environmental perception study, and geopolitical study, we used those type of techniques with types of question, types of methods to survey the direct observation to create the primary database through this questionnaire survey. And here few principles are very important. Here few question types should be avoided. Those are the hypothetical question, and second is the offensive question, and third one is the extreme positive and extreme negative question. Those should be avoided or otherwise deal with very sensitive and very minutely and very carefully. The third important field technique is the interview method. Interview method includes group interview, individual interview, children's opinion, elderly people's opinion, interview through the electronic devices, or the virtual interview. So interview method is the very important tools and most useful techniques to collect qualitative information from the field. This method is usually used for the professional or trained researcher for the particular purpose from a particular field areas. Interviews are designed to collect qualitative and sometimes quantitative information from the small segment of the respondent. The interviews are designed to collect qualitative information from the small segment of the people. Number of the sample size normally associated with the interview method is normally small one. It includes the attributes, behavior, preference, feelings, attitude, opinion, knowledge of the area concerned of that particular human group, particular respondent groups. There are several types of interviews, but interview method mainly include the three types, that is over the phone, over the distance, that is the first, second one is the face-to-face interview, and third one is the through the audio visual and the electronic media, that is the online interview. Now come to the components of the interview. First component about the interview method is the formal and the conversational interview. It's the most casual methods of the interview. Here, here the question survey is not included in this method. No predetermined question are asked in that process. Open-ended question and casual discussion method normally followed in that method. We can take an example of that kind of component. Just like suppose a person or researcher want to know the opinion about the person, about a particular person, about the higher education. So in that case, as the researcher goes for the casual conversation with that particular person to get the views about the higher education. And second component is that the guide approach. And this guide approach are the here at predetermined focused conversation and freedom of respondent to provided to answer. So here the question series and the type of conversation are predetermined by the researcher and focused on the conversation. We can take an example of that, that is the political discussion and views of the politician and discussion of geopolitical phenomena, and those are the types of guide approach interview. Next one is the standardized open-ended interview. This interview, the question are pre-planned and open-ended, and it's a method to get information. Through this method, researcher gets information very fast with few selected questions. We take an example. Suppose the question is process of mitigation of the crisis during the COVID-19. We can take the opinion of a group of doctors. And we can take another example, that is attitude of the farmers towards the land use survey. Suppose question is that why the farmers are preferring the sunflower instead of paddy cultivation. If yes or no, please please explain please explain the preference. That kind of question is the standardized open-ended question. Within the few selected pre-planned question, researcher can get an idea about the attributes about the qualitative research. And next one is the closed fixed response interview. All the interviewers are asked the same question and asked to choose the answer from the selected answer group and among the sets of alternatives. This is the structure interview. Question are pre-planned and options are also given by the researcher, and through this method researcher get the series of options. Researcher can get a qualitative information too. We can take an example is that suppose respondent X, Y and Z are there and single question asked with the same single question is asked with all the person X, Y and Z with the multiple choice option. That kind of questionnaires, that kind of interview method is known as the closed fixed response interview. Now three important steps of the interview, rather three important steps involved in the interview method. First is design, second is the development of the interview guide, third is plan and management within the logistic way. First is design of the interview. Here think about who will interview. Think about what kind of information researcher want to obtain from the interview. And third one is think about why researchers want to pursue in-depth information around the specific topic. Within the views of three objective questions and the conversation mode are designed. That is the design interview questions. The second one is the developed an interview guide. So it's very important and vital part, and it's self introduction and confidence part of from the researcher point of view. Here researcher have to maintain the sequence of the question, sequence of the topic, be clear and easy understanding of the question, and also it creates the bridge between the researcher and the interviewers. And third one is the plan and manage logistic, and it is the management part. And during the interview process, so researchers should be careful and also try to bring note and also note down very selective and sensitive points, those things, to manage all these things, to manage the whole process with confidence. This is the plan and management part. These three attributes is very important and vital step to successful interview methods in the field research or the field work in the geographical research. Among the all techniques in geographical research, the participatory observation is most effective. It helps to build empirical research. Its basic foundation of empirical research lies on the observation and participatory observation. In spite of all discussion, here I would like to conclude that researcher can choose any option according to his hypothesis or her hypothesis, according to his or her objective and her own choices. So though I have discussed a lot of techniques normally used in geographical research, in spite of that, the techniques used by the researchers solely depend on the research hypothesis, only depend on the research objectives and researcher choices.